What?
You can't start a recording with what?
What?
What were you saying what about?
You said something about using my laptop or something, but I was paying attention to what was going on in my head.
SD card formatting.
Don't know what that means, but cool.
San Miguel. Oh, your mama.
Okay.
You're going to have to carry this one.
Really? Because I'm out of it completely today.
Oh, you as well? Does that mean we're going to have a nice relaxed chin wag?
Maybe. I have got some things to talk about, but...
Why are you out of it? Did you get much sleep? I know you've been...
I mean, I kind of overslept, and I've kind of been busy trying to test out sounds for triangles today.
Oh yeah, you've got to emulate a percussion section with your electronic drum kit, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I basically switched out the crash cymbal for the ride cymbal, like with the actual cables, because the ride cymbal sound is better for a triangle, but it has like a really specific spot that you have to hit. So,
Okay.
So if I'm doing a roll, it's more reliable on the ride cymbal.
All right, okay. Interesting. Turning into a tech god.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of having to decide on the timbre of it all, and I'm basically playing the entire percussion section unless they can find a timpanist.
Is it timbre or timbre? Timbre.
It's timbre.
That's French for stamps, or a stamp.
Don't ask me.
I wasn't asking you, I was telling you.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, let's not let this evening turn into what happened last time we were drinking together.
Yeah, I think that would probably be for the best, yes.
I'm going to avoid that particular brand of beer again. The Innocent Gun Ale, 6.6%.
Okay.
Because I was a bit of a twat. And I'm too tired to be a twat. I've been getting up at 9 a.m. and doing a bit of work. Oh, that's channel. Shall we start the podcast?
Maybe.
Okay.
Hello.
Maybe not.
What's that?
Oh, I'm making the wobble table. I'm making the tobble wabble table.
Shut up.
I've only had a sip of beer. Sorry, carry on.
You're like this when you're not drunk. It's just as soon as I start trying to be remotely professional, you just can't handle it.
It sounds like you're phoning it in. Remotely professional. Like, where are you?
I don't know. I think we're in Spain, dear.
Spain. Oh, San Miguel. Dos cervezas, por
Shut
favor.
the fuck up. Hello Internet, I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter.
Is that your theme song now?
I'm trying to put variety into the show, and I'm running out of daft things to do.
We're getting on. This is episode 62. Welcome, by the way.
Welcome.
We're a bit.
What the fuck? Oh, that's all right. That's just Camera 2's Wi-Fi. That's just Camera 2 waiting to start recording later on and getting fed up and going into standby.
We're a bit out of it today.
Yeah,
I slept in, which isn't unusual, but I for some reason just had a headache.
And I've been getting productive and waking up at like 9 a.m, which seems like I mean that sounds like I'm thinking that's really early. I mean, most people kind of start work before that.
I'm nocturnal now. I can't sleep in the darkness.
We're going to have a shock coming to us, aren't we?
Yeah.
Still at uni.
No, genuinely, I don't think I've slept through an hour of darkness for a while.
Mind you, I mean, I'm going to be going into teaching after that, so I'll be used to kind of having quite decent holidays where I can catch up on sleep and stuff. Apparently, most of my friends who are in teaching, basically, they just kind of crawl to the end of the summer term and then they just sleep for 24 hours before they can do anything.
Yeah, but like, then you have to deal with people.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I mean, I'm probably going to try both out to see what I prefer, but I'm kind of leaning towards possibly thinking about teaching primary rather than secondary.
Oh,
but
I don't know who's worse.
I don't know. I feel like I'm more that kind of mental maturity. I think I relate to teenagers. Scare me. They're too old for me to kind of relate to. They're kind of you know what I mean. They try to be kind of. Oh, never mind.
I mean, there's probably a fair amount of the people in my music class that you could have related to.
Yeah, that's true. I'll try them. I think my ideal would be in school. I think I'd probably get because the other thing is you get to teach different subjects. You won't be teaching music all the time. So
right, well, I think if you're teaching music specifically, you'd be like a specialist visiting schools normally.
No, they're Perrys. They're peripatetic teachers. No, but music as a subject. If I was in secondary school, I'd be teaching music as a subject, like Mrs. Moyer.
Yeah.
But this is classroom teaching, which is different from visiting instrumental teachers.
Yeah, but like at least when I was at primary, we just had there was a guy that like visited a bunch of schools to teach each class music.
That's interesting. I'll find out more about it near the time. But
he must be getting on. He was grey when I was at primary.
Some people start going grey in their 20s, you know.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
But I think my ideal would possibly be to teach sort of primary age in school because I think it would be less hassle because they wouldn't be bringing teenage problems with them and being all bolshy and stuff.
I don't know.
But then perhaps be involved in the kind of county music scene outside of that. I don't know if that'll be an option, but I'll find out.
Primary school kids are just like plain evil. Teenagers are like calculated.
Yeah,
evil.
but I kind of understand their mentality. I kind of get them. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like teenagers would bully me.
What? Because I do.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I kind of know you. But see, if you're teaching them in a school, okay, you get to know them as they get older. But every year, you think you've kind of got yourself sussed, and another load come through.
Yeah, well, that's the same with any.
Anyway, what are we going to talk about? Are we?
Well, shall we start with the news?
Is this public news or channel news first?
Either or.
Well, while we're on the subject of me getting productive, I just thought I'd like to announce that I am on the verge of having lots of stuff set up and getting into finally getting into streaming myself, working and gaming.
You want to do that like 3 years ago?
Yeah, but I didn't really get round to see what kicked it off. Actually, getting me to get the technology sorted and the program sorted and getting it actually working this time was because I don't know if I mentioned on this. I was working on a remote choir project with Nan, with Nan's choir, where they've recorded on their phones in their living rooms, sent me all their audio files, and I put them together, and you can see the results on my YouTube channel. I don't know if I've linked it through to your. Anyway, it's the Orbiter. But anyway, yeah, I was gonna show her what I do, how I work with the audio files, because there's a lot of dark arts that goes on with shifting audio files around and editing and crossfading and auto-tuning. which I thought she'd find interesting. So I tried to record myself, like do a screen capture recording it, and I got the screen capture, but I didn't get the sound. But that got me into working out how to do all the routing of the video and the sound and stuff. And then I thought, well, she can actually, if she wanted to, she's interested in seeing how it works, she could actually watch me doing it as I'm doing it instead of me recording stuff and then having to upload it and stuff. So I got it all sorted out. And I'm all set up. I've set up a Windows partition on my Mac so that I can do some gaming stuff on our Twitch channel. But in the meantime, because I use Streamlabs, I now have
pretty much
my own
that
personal
way back
streaming site.
We used to
theorbiter.live.
Way back when we used to stream these.
Like, yeah, we did it once or twice, didn't we?
I think we might have done it about 3 times.
Didn't somebody tip us 10p?
Yeah, I think so. But one of the streams, it got really long. But
Breaking Bollocks Live, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit. I don't know. They started off like kind of nice and like talking to us, and then just out of nowhere, one of them just started being a dickhead, and then they all started being a dickhead.
I think that's just.
I don't know. They might have just.
You don't. Thing is, on streaming, you don't have to be the kind of person who interacts. There's latency settings. And the standard latency is like if you don't want real-time interaction, especially if you're on games that you've got like multiple online players, you don't want people to kind of be able to see what you're doing when you're doing it, because
no, but like it would be. I like that sort of idea of interacting. It's just when there's people that you have. But you haven't sort of built up an audience.
If I'm streaming, if I'm concentrating on a game, or if I'm concentrating on work, like if I'm doing my sort of studio work and streaming that, I don't mind there being standard latency, which is perhaps maybe 15, 20 seconds behind, something like that, because people don't chat through audio.
Well, if you try and do it real time, it tends to fuck up, I think.
Yeah, unless you've got a really good internet connection and.
Yeah, I'm not sure about it.
Anyway.
Any other channel news?
I don't. Oh, we've got a special episode coming up, haven't we?
Oh, yes.
Which we shall be recording this week.
At some point this week. I mean, there's various things going on. I mean, I'm trying to do basically the whole percussion section for GYO, which is Grampian Youth Orchestra. They're doing a virtual concert, which, I don't know, it might be meant to be out by the time this episode goes out.
That's a massive project, depending on how many people take part. But
yeah, well, from the sounds of it, I'm basically the only person doing percussion, because they said for me to do the cymbals and then sent that in, and they were like, "Oh, can you do this bit?"
But then that's the problem with percussionists. If this is going to be true of any musical performer, it's likely to be the percussion section who don't have the majority of their instruments at home.
Yeah,
even professionals will generally keep all their owned percussion kit in like a lockup somewhere and go and collect it to take to rehearsals or concerts, because it takes up a lot of room, doesn't it? And the neighbours hate you.
Yeah, they're very loud and very big.
Although I would love to go out in the garden with a massive tam and just kind of in the middle of the night.
No, I mean, just like to call someone to dinner.
Yeah. Like that. Do you remember the Star Trek episode with is it Hom?
Is this the original series? No,
Next Generation. Deanna Troy's mum, who fancies Captain Picard, but she's got a manservant, the big tall guy called Hom.
Oh, right.
And they have a some kind of special meal, don't they? And he just stands in the background, kind of clanging this glass little tiny gong thing to show appreciation. I don't know where I was going with that. I always remember being told. Do you remember? I don't know if you'd remember actually. There used to be one of the film studios. I think it might have been Rank. That had like as the logo, like MGM has like a lion roaring and a kind of thing. Well, I think it was Rank Screen Productions had like a topless guy, a bit like Tarzan, some muscly topless guy with a massive gong. Gong.
Yeah. Okay.
And he would whack it. He would like take a massive swing at it. And it looked a bit like, those kind of ripply gold-covered foil chocolate coins that you hang on a Christmas tree, but really big. But I always remember being told that if the gong was actually that big, it wouldn't make anything like a gong sound because it's just, I mean, you know how big a tam-tam is, but I mean, about twice the size of the tam-tam behind Roger Taylor in the...
and back in those days,
Rocky
they called them
Montreal.
bumblebees because the nickels had pictures of bumblebees on them. Now, why did I
What
have an onion on my belt? Well, it was the style at the time.
What, an onion? What's that from?
It's a reference to The Simpsons.
Oh, right, okay. Now, that brings me to the whole racism issue.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, this was something that I found quite interesting, was that, over the last few weeks, there's been all of this Black Lives Matter stuff, and it's stirred up a lot of conversation, and which has been good. And things like Little Britain have been taken off, and, various programs have been kind of seen for what they were. And I heard... one of the podcasts on the Gentleman of Pop Culture network, which is kind of linked to the After Dark network down in Australia, talking about how it just seems weird that, and I remember this, we used to watch Little Britain, and it wasn't that long ago. It was in the noughties, and find it funny. But now watching the same stuff, it's not that long ago. And now watching the same stuff, you just feel uncomfortable.
I don't know. Most of the stuff that I've seen from it just feels like I don't know how this was okay in my lifetime.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the weird thing.
I'm not sure it was exactly though. It's just sort of
well, yeah, but Simpsons. Now I noticed this the other morning, and this is something that they've announced this week. Which was funny because I was thinking it. Do you remember the episode where they go to the sushi restaurant and there's the Japanese guys in the kitchen doing they order fugu?
Oh right, yeah.
And that's really racially stereotyped. Like the Japanese guys in the kitchen going, and all this lot. And I was just like, anyway. That on that topic, I at the time I thought, yeah, that's actually not very respectful, like to Japanese people. And there's the Apu thing as well. But that is something which has been announced this week. Hank Azaria and the Simpsons crew have said that they are from now on not going to do any people of color voiceovers with white.
They kind of want to do their part, but like it doesn't really have a huge amount to do with Black Lives Matter. Like racism isn't over because they're no longer going to be white actors playing people of colour in The Simpsons, or because Little Britain's been taken down. No, but they're all small steps. Yeah, I guess, but like
you can't eradicate something overnight like that.
I feel like quite often the discussion sort of gets drowned out from the actual action that needs to be taken. It's sort of like, while these things are sort of probably should have been done a while ago, just like in the background. But like,
how do you change people's attitudes?
Yeah, well, that's the thing of media. But I mean, see, there's a thing of like people talking about taking down statues, raising history, which is fucking dumb. But I think like I didn't even know Edward Colston, the statue pulled down in Bristol. I'd never heard of him before the statue was taken down. So taking them down.
You see, I had, and I'd heard of there being a campaign to rename the Colston Hall in Bristol, which is a famous orchestral symphony.
That'll be because you're more involved with that specifically. But like, I mean, I don't claim to speak for the people of Britain, but I don't think most people have heard of him.
That's like a similar issue
prior to this.
No. But it's a similar issue to, I know there was the Extinction Rebellion protests at art exhibitions and stuff like that. And this has happened in in music, in the world of music as well, that stopping the idea of oil companies sponsoring the arts, which is a weird one because obviously you want the money, but at the same time, do you want to be giving publicity to companies that are killing the planet?
Oh, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. But then you sort of go, well, okay, sure, but like, we need to be as ethical as possible and reasonable. Either that or just tear the whole thing down. Which, yeah, I'm increasingly getting on board with.
Yeah, but you've got to get through no man's land then. No person's land, sorry. It's all very well saying that, but it's you've got to get to the other side.
Something new, I guess, but like...
It takes time to build that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, people have been breaking lockdown rules en masse. Or kind of.
Did you see Bournemouth Beach on?
Yeah, I heard... did see a thing... in Dorset, they had about 500,000 visitors.
Yeah.
Either on the beach or trying to get to the beach.
But they've I think, was it yesterday or the day before, they had the busiest ever day for bookings in the travel industry because they've opened up Europe for for summer holidays to the Brits. Like there was, I think it was, I can't remember if he said it was like about 3 times or 8 times, I'm not sure which it was, but busier than the same day last year.
See, I sort of thought things would get a bit more casual during the summer and that there would be a second wave, but I didn't think it would be like as soon as things opened up. But I guess that's what happens when you change your rules to suit what your advisors are doing.
Meanwhile, they're talking about locking down Leicester at the moment, aren't they?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, some a local spec. I mean, this is the way it seems to be going, is that they're talking about having these local lockdowns, and Leicester looks like it might be heading that way because they've had an outbreak in a meatpacking plant.
They say that they were going to... They're opening up pubs as well, which I think is part of why people have flocked to the beaches.
And England's gone down to the 1 metre rule now as well, haven't they?
Well, they say 1 metre plus, which is like, well, then it's not 1 metre. Like, 2 meters if you can manage it, but like,
I don't know what this
you're
is.
Not going to be.
See, this is Sunday. This podcast tends to go out on a Thursday, so it's 4 days away, 5 days away. Yeah, 4 days away. But today, or yesterday, I suppose, with the news, Florida has had almost 10,000 new cases, 9,500 new cases, the most ever.
They never really locked down, though, did they?
No. Well, yeah, but I mean, the theme park's closed and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's individual companies doing that, I think, to, like, basically save their PR. But the actual government in Florida, I don't think, has done anything. And a lot of the states, because they have it where states have a lot of power over local governance.
I see the Rolling Stones are pissed off with Donald Trump.
Yeah, it seems to happen every time he picks a new song that just like basically just everyone fucking hates him. So like he can't.
I mean, I understand
music.
I understand that, but I mean, practically speaking, I'm not sure exactly. I mean, the Rolling Stones have said that they're consulting with their lawyers to see what they can do.
There's different rules for political rallies.
Oh right, okay.
Because I think it was something to do with Reagan back in the day.
Because I know
he used like "Born in the USA," which Bruce Springsteen was not happy about.
I mean, essentially, normally under normal circumstances, if a venue's licensed to play music, then you just have to pay the royalties.
But it's because it's like it's got a particular person, it's got a message behind it that like it could be seen as an endorsement.
I wonder if that's a similar kind of thing as I think it has to be okayed if music gets used for like an ad campaign. Yeah, because I suppose it kind of implies support for that product.
I think there's a Vox video on it.
Vox.
to the YouTube channel.
What else is happening?
March 11, 2020.
Oh, what are you doing? You putting new things. What are you doing? Why are you doing that?
I'm
what are
getting
you
up
doing?
a video.
What are you doing? Why? Oh, this is good. I'm going to have to edit something out now, aren't I?
Well, yeah.
Are you going to make me watch it? So I'm going to have to edit it out. Big old bollocks.
I think it was on here.
Bob. Big old bollocks. Bob.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Bob. Our monthly exclusive for subscribers on Patreon. Bob.
Here we go. How Queen got Trump to stop using their music.
All right. Okay.
Because it's that We Are the Champions thing.
Okay. I'll I'll allow this one because I want to see this.
Sell out in seconds.
It's kind of interesting when you consider that they don't mind Flash Floor Cleaner using it.
What?
Which is kind of interesting when you consider they don't mind Flash Floor Cleaner using their music. I mean, basically, Freddie Mercury has said to the rest of the band before he died that whatever they wanted to do with his music was fine because it was, at the end of the day, it was just music. It was there to be made money from. So,
Is Flash Floor Cleaner, though, a politician?
No, but it is funny that that yeah, I know, yeah.
Well, I'll play the video to explain.
Please do.
Yeah, so basically they need a particular license and the actual artist can opt out of that when
I don't know if we said if you want to see that video, how Queen got Trump to stop using their music on Vox channel on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah. So politics, yeah.
Also, with the highest temperature in the Arctic ever was recorded in a North Siberian town. I think it was 38 degrees Celsius.
Ooh, that's warm.
Yeah. I think I looked it up a little while ago.
And where did you say?
There's a town in Siberia. Yeah.
For those of us who aren't particularly good at geography, is that northern Russia?
Yeah, well, it's sort of that middle bit of Russia, but it was a northern part of Siberia.
Mm.
Yeah, 38 degrees C in Verkhoyansk, Siberian town.
Wow.
To put that in context, I think the highest temperature in the UK ever isn't much different to that.
No. Well, when we were burning like fuck in Turkey, do you remember the day that we went to visit that like kind of gorge place? And we went canoeing, did we, or something? That was reaching 42.
Right.
So it wasn't far off that, which was fucking almost painful. You know, you could hardly move, and this is in the Arctic Circle.
Yeah. So yeah, the world's still burning. I know we're kind of distracted with other stuff, but like, big picture, like, we're still fucked on that front, which is lovely to know.
But well, what shall we do about it, Firebolt? What shall we make our mission?
Us personally, or like as a society, what should we do?
Well, we're not in charge of society, are we? What can we do as individuals?
Pardon
me? I mean, what would you say is the biggest sort of carbon footprint that? I mean, if you believe the vegans, I suppose my meat consumption. Yes, I did fall off that wagon.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite. One of the most major contributions you can sort of, or major things that you can cut out to.
They are
help as an individual, but
something about this that.
I mean, it's still that the ultra wealthy are doing a fair portion.
That was it. I was watching a thingy on barbecues. It was the Jeff Goldblum World According to Jeff Goldblum, and there was an episode on barbecues, and they were talking. He did obviously a lot about sort of meat and that, but then he did a whole section on the effect that has on the planet and stuff like that. And by the way, he has a wife and kids. I said to you that I didn't realise he was gay. He might be, or bi, I don't know. But it was just because I said to you, Jeff Goldblum, I said I didn't realise till I started watching that programme that he was...
I mean, he is very camp.
Yeah, but I mean, I was quite surprised because of the way that he was very... kind of overtly excited about being involved with sort of filming in the sort of LGBTQ area, but he was flirting basically with men, like quite not aggressively, but quite obviously. But yeah, so I don't know whether or not he is. Not that it matters, but anyway, I was just digressing there because he was talking about they're looking into sustainable animal meat consumption, and apparently one of the most nutritionally concentrated forms of animal products to eat is insects. They looking into making kind of almost like synthetic meat type stuff from insects.
You sort of might wince at the idea of eating insects, it is something that we may have to do in the future, especially as a lot of insects
I'd certainly
that you typically find in hotter climates begin to migrate.
If I went to a country where they eat crickets, I'd certainly wouldn't shrink at trying them. I know Uncle Carl has eaten them in. I can't remember where he
at my
Singapore
school.
He's been to. Do they eat them in Thailand?
Well, they eat them all over the place. Someone had brought in like a packet of, I think it was like salted crickets.
Oh right, okay.
And somebody brought some down from that class to try and just didn't want to.
Well, do you see that? In some ways, it doesn't surprise me. But what does surprise me is how keen you were to try and also to enjoy. You seem to enjoy snails.
Well, snails aren't freaky and spindly.
No, they're slimy and kind of taste like earth, like soil.
Snails don't freak me out.
Okay.
Mm.
Can you imagine flying snails? It's like sort of. Imagine a flying snail. It just like gets stuck to your face.
Oh, that would be terrifying.
Flying leeches.
Oh right. Well, this is not what I was expecting.
What?
There's apparently been allegations against him.
Against who? Jeff Goldblum?
Yeah.
Of what?
Harassment and assault.
When was this?
2 years ago.
Oh,
I think
right,
it was when the sort of Me Too hashtag was blowing up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? I mean, that was another thing I remember thinking, I've always felt a bit uncomfortable about that. But the Unscripted film podcast, they were talking about they talk about all sorts, but talking about that, how kind of casually it seems to incorporate that scene in Back to the Future, which is basically pretty much attempted rape, in the car with Biff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of how, I mean, it was a fairly intense scene, but it's just like it did feel uncomfortable. Like,
I think that was part of the point.
Yeah,
but like, there is a sort of issue.
The point they were trying to make was that then later on, after that timeline's been changed, Biff, when he goes back to the present, Biff is there cleaning the car, and it's like, would you really have the guy that tried to rape you cleaning your car?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't alive in the 80s. What the attitude would have been.
Pardon me.
But yeah, there is a sort of thing more recently that's sort of been about like showing trauma on screen, being a bit more careful about that.
I know you often refer to how scary it is, how recently homosexuality became legal. But I'm not sure, and this is another one that's a bit scary. I'd have to look at when it was, but it's not that long ago that it was impossible to, well, legally it wasn't technically possible to rape your wife because it was seen as a conjugal right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rules on that in Scotland mainly changed, like, to do with how it works in a relationship. I mean, there may have been some rules on this, but like they were made more clear in, I think it was 2003.
Yeah.
Not long enough ago.
Pardon me. Anyway, any more news? Any more nudes?
Oh, there was something. Ooh, Keir Starmer's kicked out Rebecca Long Bailey.
Oh yeah, his backbenchers aren't too happy, are they? But
if you don't know what there's a lot of backstory to what's going on with Labour. Basically, when Jeremy Corbyn was in charge, there was a fair amount of anti-Semitism going on. From what I can tell, while he was against it quite publicly, he didn't necessarily do enough to stop it, and ended up sort of
it was
being a bit slow to act on that.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because there is an overlap between what some people regard as anti-Semitism and what other people regard as kind of not defending the Palestinians, but like anti-Israel.
Yeah,
or certainly criticising Israel, should we say.
There's a line there where sort of implicating like all of Judaism into what Israel's doing would definitely be anti-Semitic.
Yeah, but there's also the difference between, because there are two different kind of meanings to Jewish, isn't there? You can be religiously Jewish, but you can also be culturally Jewish but not be religious.
Yeah, well, I think sort of I think there's a fair amount of sort of atheist Jews, especially in America.
Yeah.
But I
wonder where the term comes from.
What?
I wonder where the term comes from. I mean, from what I know of like biblically accounted history, they were Egyptian slaves at one point, and then moved, and then sort of escaped and trekked to what is now Israel. But I don't know where they came from before that. Where they were if they were from Israel previously, before the Egyptians took them as slaves.
How the sort of it works within Scripture is going to be very different from what actually happened, but sort of meant to be this promised land that.
A land flowing with milk and honey.
Yeah, well, it's sort of. I think it's a lot of the reason why a lot of like fundamentalist Christians in America seem like really eager to help out Israel, because there's sort of this thing of, if you help the Jewish people like take back Israel, like you'll be rewarded in the rapture or whatever.
It is a tool that's kind of used almost in a propaganda sense, though. Religion is useful as an ideal to give hope to those who are oppressed of something, some kind of paradise type existence to look forward to.
But yeah, I mean, that was,
you got all like the sort of the Negro spirituals, and
the history's pretty complicated there, but basically after World War II, Britain kind of said, Britain sort of said, oh, Palestine can be freed, but then sort of partitioned it with Israel. And then Israel started, and it's not really, I'm not really sure who really started the fighting there, but they basically started like invading Egypt.
It was always burning since the world's been turning.
But yeah, they basically.
I know that's fire, by the way, not fighting.
There was a bunch of wars with their neighbours, and now it's to the point where they're annexing part of. Well, they have been annexing for quite a while. Parts of Palestinian territory.
What happened? Because was it Donald Trump? Did he not declare Jerusalem the capital of Israel or something?
Well, he moved the embassy there, which is essentially
the same thing.
Yeah, saying that.
Yeah, which that's the Jerusalem was kind of the bit that they different religions share, really, wasn't it?
Not too long ago, made a deal that said, oh, basically Israel gets all these parts annexed. Plus, I think Golan Heights, which is actually part of Syria legally, I think.
Pardon me.
But also Trump has like developments there, so there's things at stake.
Do you know I haven't sneezed for 2 days?
What?
I've been suffering really, really badly with sneezing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with anything. Right, basically, to cut this short, since you're clearly getting bored, there was this interview with someone, I've forgotten their name, where she basically said...
Who's she?
I've forgotten her name. Not Rebecca Long Bailey, someone else. So someone basically said that the Israeli Defense Force, IDF, taught police in America the tactic of kneeling on people's necks.
Oh, nice.
And therefore has some blame in the police brutality that's going on in America, which is a half-truth, because while American police forces have trained with IDF,
it seems a bit
they definitely didn't invent the technique of kneeling on someone's neck.
No, it seems a bit like sort of saying, "Oh, you trained these people to punch people in the face," or it's something that it doesn't seem like something that you would need to be specifically trained to come up with.
No, and while IDF can frankly get fucked, they're not really to blame in any significant way for the police brutality in America. And it sort of plays into this definitely anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that like Jews are to blame for all the evils of the world. Mm-hmm. Basically, Rebecca Long Bailey sort of endorsed that statement, I think, kind of posted that article with that interview saying that she agreed with some of the things being said there. And Keir Starmer... I think she's like...
The whole idea, though,
was Shadow's
annoys me.
Education Secretary. She got sacked from that position. Not sure if she got sacked as an MP entirely.
I say the whole idea annoys me, but I think the fact that so many people fall for it annoys me. Wow. That whole idea that a particular race or a particular section of society can be inherently evil. It's kind of... all this is the difference between, it's like, for me, to make any sense out of it, anything, you've got to forget this idea of there being an absolute thing such as good and evil.
Well, yeah, but
because once you start doing that, you start labeling everything, including people.
Yeah,
and it's like things happen and there are consequences. That's it. Some are obviously more desirable to some people than to others. I don't know. I just seem to have a natural. I suppose we all trust our own natural sense of what's. See, it's difficult to speak because I say good and evil. That's the same thing as saying right and wrong, isn't it? It's kind of.
Well, it's sort of good and evil. I think is a bit more absolute, or at least evil is definitely, but right and wrong sort of like people can be right and wrong individually on a lot of different things.
You can be right and wrong at the same time as well about something, because
That's sort of like that thing with the half-truths. While it's absolutely right to condemn the government of Israel and
like
IDF, there's a lot of background context here to why it might be anti-Semitic, but like it's not directly. So,
like, is it ever right?
It's a lot of second guessing people's intentions and what they should know better.
Like, really. Is it ever right to kill someone?
Only when there's absolutely no other option. But I certainly don't think it should be legal, or people should be paid thousands of dollars a year to do it, which is why I say fuck the police. And
yeah, it's not technically in their job description, though, is it?
They get qualified immunity for it because basically people haven't been charged in the past for doing that, so they can say, well, how was I supposed to know?
That's just a domesticized version of like military law, isn't it? You know, like in the arena of war.
I don't think that should really be legal either, but then that's why I don't have any influence. Well, not specifically.
You might do. There might be somebody out there listening who thinks, he's got a point.
Well, good luck never being listened to.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I think there's plenty of people out there that listen. It's just...
going back to the actual story I was talking about, his actual sacking of her,
why have I got teabagging in my mind now?
While she's not necessarily anti-Semitic herself, it was certainly poor judgment, especially given like she's been sort of around the controversy with Jeremy Corbyn for quite a while. She should have probably known better, and given that one of his like main sort of campaign promises, I guess, in the leadership campaign was to stamp out anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, it doesn't look good to have a frontbencher who's in this sort of controversy.
Indeed.
So, I mean, I'm not entirely enthusiastic about him. He seems sort of to have a sort of this approach of, oh, well, if I'm too aggressive, then the papers won't like me, and then I'll have the same problem as Jeremy Corbyn. I'm not necessarily sure. I mean,
I like watching Prime Minister's questions when he's there. Just because I like courtroom dramas.
Yeah, but PMQs are fucking stupid and it basically achieve nothing most of the time.
It's a lot less news than I used to.
It's a big theatrical thing most of the time. Although it is entertaining seeing Boris Johnson when he hasn't got like hundreds of MPs just roaring behind him.
Indeed.
Having to actually, speak for himself.
So, anything else in the news? That guy knifed a load of people in Glasgow, didn't he?
Oh, I don't. I've seen vague things because I follow Nicola Sturgeon on Twitter about something to do with Glasgow.
There was a guy there's apparently a load of asylum seekers have been, during the coronavirus thing, have been put up in hotels.
Right.
And this particular hotel, I can't remember where they said it was. Park Inn or something? I don't know. Anyway, somebody who was there, another asylum seeker who was there, had known this was likely to happen because the guy had said he was wanting to hurt. But basically, they're not being treated particularly well. They're not being kind of fed properly and all of this sort of stuff. So he's kind of gone off on one and basically gone around stabbing people. He was struggling mentally, should we say. He was mentally ill. But basically was...
You're a refugee, you'd see some pretty shit stuff.
Yeah, from Sudan, I think they said.
Right. I think there's a civil war going on
Yeah.
Still.
Can't imagine. I hope you never have to go through that here.
I mean, I've seen a bunch of stuff about refugees, sort of saying that like people are welcome in Glasgow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that it's not turned into the sort of hate immigrants thing that England seems to have gone down.
Well, I see. Sort of, I did kind of wince at that a little bit because it was the UK news that I was, and just hearing them saying that he was an asylum seeker at the sort of top of the article, it was like, why are you making anything of that? You know,
I can't remember who said it, but basically this idea that ideology is basically what decides what facts are important to you.
Yeah.
And that becomes particularly clear when you see what's put in what order in a headline.
Yeah. Are we anywhere near getting onto the...
Yeah, we should. I mean, we've waffled on for a bit.
Fucking hell, it's... Yeah.
Anyway.
Globalism.
Globalism.
Oh, shit. Have I researched the wrong subject?
What have you researched?
Globalism.
Are you going to try and make up a silly explanation for what that is?
No, it's a fetish to do with fat globules. I didn't make that up, honestly. Anyway, no.
Really?
Seriously, no, I don't have no idea. No, I'm making it. They don't look it up. It's not true.
Well, I know it's not. I put globulism.
That's something entirely different. Now, I'm not entirely sure what globalism is. I will tell you what I thought it was.
An art movement that is defined by a technique of painting in which small rounded globs of paint are applied in a pattern to create a unified three-dimensional image.
That's far more intellectual than I thought it would be.
I mean, it's on Urban Dictionary, so it might not be correct.
Now, I don't know actually what globalism in the political definition is, but I will open my contribution to it by saying that up until the Brexit vote, I thought that was kind of my ethos, that really we should be working towards becoming one planetary nation.
Yeah, I mean,
like.
there's sort of there's two sides to that, with sort of being more for unity and sort of like taking down borders, that sort of thing. It's sort of,
if I can
fostering international
explain
relationships, that sort of thing.
What my sort of reference to Brexit, what the relevance of that was. There were so many different arguments coming about Brexit that in the end, the only thing that I could really base my decision on was whether or not we should be a group of 4 countries or be a part of a group of 28 countries. And that was nearer to the ideal of not having any borders. But then, since all that's happened, I mean, like, I'm now of a different mind in some ways, in that I think it depends on... I mean, globalism as a concept, is that a good thing if it's a global dictatorship? You know, how do you get away from...
There's sort of... I mean, the various sort of definitions of what globalism might look like, whether you're talking about simply just like being more, I guess, xenophilic rather than xenophobic, or whether you're talking about like a unified global government, or like a... Let's just
pause like for a moment and look at what the stem of those words means, the xeno part.
Xeno means foreigner, I think.
Right, okay. But see, pure like globalism surely would not... that would be an irrelevant term unless you were talking about people from other planets.
Well, that's sort of point that I'm making, sort of like if you're talking about just more cooperation between nations, or like the abolition of this concept of nations altogether.
That's interesting, because I think that's one of the problems that I'm kind of becoming more aware of now, because if there was a Scottish referendum, I would definitely be looking to cut ties with England because of the political differences between the two nations. And that, while it's not as big a gap, there are so many different... I mean, if you look at the difference between, say, somebody like Switzerland and somebody like North Korea,
right?
There's how do you join two societies like that in a global community? You know, there's so many different cultural arenas.
North Korea is probably sort of it's sort of more isolationist states. It's sort of like you can't really have that by force. The idea is to sort of incorporate everyone through cooperation. So unless North Korea sort of dismantles its own dictatorship, I don't think most of the world would be fine going towards this.
So
it's sort of trying to go a step further towards.
So rather than see, for me, globalism would mean one nation, a one-nation planet. But what some people possibly mean is what I would think of as perhaps global federalism.
I mean, I think sort of globalism in its current form seems to... It would seem impractical, at least for the moment, to have like one world government. I know we've got the UN, but like, whilst that can do some things, its power is pretty limited, and like, I don't think we vote in any particular representatives other than like really indirectly by voting in a government that appoints them.
It seems to me that the superpowers, whoever they might be at different times in history, the biggest problem seems to be that when a new power begins to grow or coalesce or arise, whatever you want to call it, develop, it's almost like they're automatically seen as an adversary. I mean, it's very evident that America doesn't like the concept of a united Europe.
Is it?
Well, I think so.
I mean, it depends what government you're talking about. It's...
America as it is now.
Well, yeah, Trump's sort of America definitely doesn't, but they seem to be a lot more interested in relations with Russia than with Europe, because they've been sort of cutting ties with allies and seem to dislike things like NATO. But then there is an argument like that something like the UN sort of gives these superpowers too much power. So like the Security Council, there's 5 members that have a veto, and seemingly the US has just used that, I think, at least 18 times.
How is that fair? How is that tolerated?
There's been like a almost unanimous vote to something to do with like criticizing Israel. Coming back to that, but that they've just vetoed that. How
is it justified that any one nation or any group of nations should have more power within an organization than any other?
Well, because they had a huge part in actually creating it. It's not necessarily justified. It's just that's
it's kind of ironic though when you look at Europe or the European Union. I mean, you know, we were very instrumental in its formation, and now we're fucking off.
Well, yeah. Well, not actually the European Union. We joined quite a bit later. I mean, well, it's sort of how we helped in
the common market too,
but like,
yeah,
we joined quite a bit later.
Oh, that's not what I'd heard when all the Brexit stuff was going on. I maybe heard wrongly.
We joined in the 70s. It started in the 50s. The sort of precursor to it, that was sort of the cooperation between France and Germany mainly. But I mean, for France, that's a pretty solid move because they've got basically perfect geography of that particular part of their borders secure from, like, by making it diplomatically locked. Then they've got the English Channel to the north, the Atlantic, the Pyrenees, the Alps, and the Mediterranean. They're sort of covered on all sides in that case.
Yeah.
And Germany, I don't think, had a huge amount of choice. But yeah, I've actually been listening to... I think I did... play it in the car to you ages ago, podcast. I think it's actually unlisted on YouTube, too long for Twitter, on Brexit, like around about the time of the vote. I did find it interesting though, because one of them predicted that Nigel Farage was basically playing with insider information with no knowledge of that actually happening. Like way back then, and now that it's come out that was exactly what he was doing, to basically just gamble with the pound.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of people making
a tithole. It seems he's broken travel regulations again to go to America.
Is he?
Nigel Farage.
I hope he's gone to Florida.
No, well, he basically wanted to go to the Trump rally, which, funnily enough, I'm not entirely sure whether this is actually to do with like a campaign on TikTok, but basically a bunch of people bought fake tickets to that to boost the numbers, and then just didn't turn up, and they looked like idiots.
There was, I think it's been deleted now, and the Trump administration have apologised for it, claiming that he didn't know about it. But Trump retweeted a video that had people at the rally in the background chanting white power. And according to his administration, that he didn't realise.
Of course. But yeah, I mean, it describes it here, globalism, as various systems with scope beyond the merely international. Attempts to understand all the interconnections of the modern world and to highlight patterns that underline and explain them.
Yeah.
I mean,
there seems to be pockets.
Yeah, what I was talking about with it sort of being like a two-sided coin is like globalism can mean sort of international trade, that sort of thing, and exist very much within capitalism to sort of be this sort of like how multinational corporations basically seem to control large amounts of power around the world because they basically can just move anywhere and also pay no tax in that system. But then there's a sort of different idea of globalism.
Do you think flat earthers call it circleism?
Yeah, I don't think flat earthers are operating
important in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, there's sort of a second. You always derail me.
I know. I'm trying to think of a new way to do it now. Keep going.
Well, there's sort of this idea of
inject
sort of
some
like
humour.
Marxist theory of like the global brotherhood of man and sort of the world revolution, sort of inspiring people to rise up around the world and take on their oppressors.
That used to be a band that would play on some Saturday night programme every week. The Brotherhood of Man.
Okay.
It was a generation game or something, I don't know.
I mean, the reason I was bringing it up is sort of within the whole Brexit debate, which, by the way, has been quite quiet for a while now.
We're falling off the cliff at the end of December.
Well, yeah, it's basically just like there's no hope anymore of actually stopping it. So
taking this back to the news, we bought a whole bunch of the wrong satellites, apparently.
What?
Right.
Wow.
So, in the process of trying to come up with a replacement, if you like, or an alternative to the European-run satellite navigation system, what was it called? I can't remember what it's called now. Galileo, is it?
Yeah.
Which is in mid-Earth orbit, apparently, I think. Middle-Earth orbit?
Middle-Earth orbit.
Mid-Earth, yeah. It's doing the rounds around Sauron. Just doing a big eye thing. Anyway, Mount Doom. Doom, we're all doomed, I tell you.
Shut the fuck up. Right, what were you trying to move on?
There's some satellite thingy that's in low Earth orbit that is being used for something else, and the company said to the government that they could piggyback the sat nav kind of system onto their low Earth orbit thingies, but there's a whole load of technical people with knowledge about it saying this has never been done before and there's no reason to suggest that it's actually going to work. I can't remember what that was the essence of what I picked up from the news item anyway, but obviously we've already bought
everyone in this government is either incompetent, evil, or both.
Well, there's all that bullshit that happened with that test and trace thing that was owned by Cummings' wife's dog's sister's brother's cousin or something. The software development company that was doing the Isle of Wight testing app thing, and they've just abandoned all of that now, haven't they? They're going with the Apple and Google tool.
Well, didn't they just basically go, actually, no, you can all just go out now. I don't know what's going on with that, because they don't actually seem to be doing any tracing.
No, well, they don't have a way of making it. Apple and Google have a tool, which it's not an app, but it's a part of their, and it's on your phone already, in case you didn't know. If you look in the settings, it's not activated by default, but it's there now so that it can be used by people who build apps, by developers who build apps for testing and tracing purposes. But it's basically something that does something with the Bluetooth on the phone so that it can monitor the Bluetooth of other phones around it. They've built it into the operating system so that it can be used for apps now.
So privacy's dead.
But the difference is,
I mean, it already was. But.
And this is why a lot of people weren't going to touch the government one, because it was run by this company that had such close links with I keep calling him Dominic Cummings. So there were privacy issues, but with the Apple and Google ones,
such
the data
shit name for a supervillain as well.
The data in the Apple and Google ones is automatically deleted after 14 days.
Right.
Because that's all the amount of time it's needed for.
Right.
Because of the test and trace thing. If you've not been around somebody for 14 days, then you're fine. So.
Okay.
I mean, I get the sort of because I think I was reading something about Huawei being potentially banned from UK.
Oh yeah,
thingies at some point. But I do get the worry about private corporations and data. But if you ask me, do I trust Apple or Google more or less than the UK government? I know which I would go with. I mean. I don't carry a device around provided to me by the UK government that tracks all my movements.
I don't know. I just don't really trust anyone that rich, either in the government or because it seems like all of them are fucking privately educated or from a corporation. But kind of,
I think what I mean to say is trust is perhaps the wrong word, but I trust.
You'll put up.
I trust Apple and Google to do to make the right calls with that data, and not to try to manipulate it to kind of. I mean, I trust them more to get it right than. I mean, like if the UK government were tracking me through a device that I take everywhere with me, I wouldn't put it past. I wouldn't trust them not to put me in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you know what I mean.
I'd trust Mr. Bean more than this government. So yeah, that's
Mr. Bean. He would make a good prime beanister.
What?
He would make a good prime. You heard me. I said you heard me. I'm not going to repeat myself.
Okay. Right. Yeah. The sort of thing with the Brexit thing was there were a fair amount of people, I think, sort of Labour voters who could see that the EU, whilst there's a lot of benefits to it, it's still a capitalist system and it's got its problems.
Oh, by the way, big thank you.
What?
On behalf of everyone here to the Scottish... What is it called? I can't remember what it's called now. We've been given...
I'm so grateful you've forgotten its name.
It's some fund or other.
Scottish Enterprise Fund.
That's the one, Scottish Enterprise Fund. They've bunged us a bit more money to keep us going until October because I'm not getting any gigs at all.
Because the Scottish government doesn't actively hate people. I mean, it might get some things wrong occasionally, but you don't feel like it actually wants you dead.
I applied originally because there was this financial help available, grants, not loans. So they just give you the money. Up to £25,000 for businesses. And one of the sectors that was specifically mentioned was the sort of hospitality and tourism industry, which wedding industry is part of that, and the arts as well. So I applied for that originally, and they gave us some back in, was it April? But I had an email last week saying, we realise that it's going to be a long time before your sector is back to normal. So using your knowledge of that sector, can you send us another 3 months cash flow projections and we'll see if we can give you some more money to keep you going. Because I know weddings are opening up again in England at the moment, but only for up to 30 people, I think. And that's not Scotland, obviously, that we're being more cautious up here. But there is talk that it could be, by the end of the summer, that Scotland could be essentially COVID-free, the way it's going.
I mean, it depends. I'm always very cautious because, until there's a vaccine,
that's the difficulty. How do you stop it coming back in? It's all very well as getting rid of all our cases, but I mean, if there's any, we need to build Hadrian's Wall again.
I mean,
get a load of Glaswegians down there.
Why specifically Glaswegians?
Because they're big and they drink girders. Give them a lorry load of iron brew. It's made from girders. Iron brew, stocky Glaswegians building walls to keep the what are they called? Sassenachs out.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Keeping the virus at bay.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I don't think we'll need to do that, but we should still be pretty careful. Either way.
I lost my mask. I had an ace mask. It's probably in a pocket somewhere. It's sort of fallen out of my pocket. It might be in the car actually.
What are you talking? Right,
my face mask.
To make this point for 30 minutes, but
I know.
You keep derailing me every 5 fucking seconds.
Well, I'm trying to make it more entertaining.
Right, with the whole Brexit thing, there's this idea of a left Brexit. Sure, we leave the European Union, but we actually make something better for ourselves.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's sort of government. Kind of relies on Labour actually winning an election, which doesn't seem to be happening.
Aren't they the ones that the Tories managed to fool into voting for them at the election?
Well, yeah, that was basically... I don't understand why anybody who's had their eyes open for the last 10 years could even think about voting.
Well, he reckons. I mean, he reckons that. I mean, for me, see, this is an indication of what I think of the Tories and Boris Johnson, especially, is that he specifically said today that there will not be a return to the austerity of 10 years ago. Now, when I hear him say that what I'm hearing is there will be a return to the austerity of 10 years ago.
Well, yeah, you can pretty much guarantee.
It's like, but is that not like really worrying when you hear the exact opposite of what they're saying, just because of what you're used to happening?
To be honest, if they're saying that now, I expect something worse than 10 years ago.
Yeah. Indeed. But anyway. Still think we should have done globalism.
Yeah, I don't think you know much about art movements. I mean, I've actually I've kind of stopped for a little while because I've been very busy this week. Been doing World Congress.
Have you applied for your funding, by the way?
Yeah,
cool.
So I've basically been sort of researching political systems around the world in an attempt to make something akin to what a world government might look like, driven by like actual democracy. Yeah,
I'm not sure exactly whether or not it's achieved it or not, but what the United Nations was supposed to be and what it actually is.
I'll look up.
I mean, it's clearly not a government, is it?
No, well, it's sort of to vote on issues that affect the world, but it doesn't necessarily. It basically just gets as much power as
it's funny
a few superpowers decides it.
The symbol looks exactly the same to me as the United Federation of Planets.
It's not too dissimilar. I think probably
is that an overhead view of the land masses on the planet?
Yeah, well, basically the idea is that usually depictions of the world center on like either America or Europe.
Right.
They wanted to include every continent with people on it.
Right.
So
okay.
They did it sort of so it spreads out from the Arctic.
Yeah.
So all continents are included.
Does favour the Arcticians. What are the
Arctic Circle.
Are they Inuits up there? Not Mexican.
What are you talking about?
Sheepdogs. No, what are they called? What are the people that live in the Arctic? Eskimos, that's it.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that's the correct term, but
it's not Mexicans.
Probably not, no. But I mean, it's mainly Russia.
What, Eskimos?
No, shut the fuck up.
Eskimos live in Russia.
Well, there's
You're not thinking of Moscow?
I think it's Yakuts, maybe.
That's a yogurt.
What are they called?
You're thinking of yurts.
No, you fucking twit. People in like Siberia.
Inuits.
No, you fucking dog shit.
Why are you resorting to throwing insults at me?
Because you're a tit. You annoy me every fucking time we do this. Right.
Yeah, but it's not. I'm just trying to make it a bit more interesting because it gets quite dry otherwise. That's what she said.
Okay. What is it?
What is what?
The Tatars. There we go.
Tatar. Hang on. Is that not spelt the same as tartar sauce?
No, it's not.
How is it spelt?
Tatar.
Close. Close. Do they eat fish? I bet they do, actually, because Eskimos eat a lot of fish.
Well, probably because it's fucking Russia.
But Russia's like a big landmass.
There's rivers and there's lakes.
Is there?
And it's surrounded by sea.
Well, it's not surrounded by sea.
Or most of it is.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's surrounded, though. It means it's not surrounded by sea.
Shut up. Shut up.
Some of it's surrounded by China.
It's... But then it's not surrounded, is it? By your logic.
Some of it is.
Well, no, it's not. Because none of it's in... Shut up. Fuck off.
Is any of the Himalayas in Russia?
No.
I know some of it's in China and...
Nipple.
Tibet. Tibet.
Nipple and tip. What the fuck?
How do we make globalism interesting? Is it a good thing? Do you think the human race will ever be one nation?
I mean, as opposed to nationalism, yes, I think that globalism is a better system. Just sort of generally, I think humans would be better if we worked together towards common goals, like sorting out global warming. Whether something like market globalism actually sort of accelerates those problems.
In a cosmopolitan sense, in terms of different cultures coexisting rather than merging them all into one.
Well, you're always going to have to get that. Probably some of the best examples to look at would either be the European Union or looking at... there's actually quite a movement to unify East Africa at the moment.
Okay.
But there's quite an issue there because there's a sort of divide. I think it's in Ethiopia, perhaps. It might be a bit over somewhere else.
I'm going to start camera 2.
Between there's like a geographic divide between Islam and Christianity there. But I think Ethiopia is sort of trying to move towards uniting a bunch of countries. I think Kenya, possibly all the way down to like Mozambique. I don't know. You probably don't know what that is.
What, Mozambique?
Yeah.
It's a country.
Well, I know you know that, but like where?
Is that somewhere near Lesotho?
It's not too far away.
In Zimbabwe.
Yeah, again, not too far away.
Just north of South Africa.
Yeah, well done.
I'm not as sick as you might think I am. I mean, thick as... Oh, never mind.
Were you about to say I'm not as sick as you might? No.
No, I wasn't.
You're not as sick as you might think I am.
I don't know. Was I? I could do with a wee.
I need another beer.
Yeah, me too. Will we have a pause in the thing, and then I'll know where to edit it.
Yeah.
So don't make any noise. We'll be back with more beer.
See,
you started. I'm not even here yet, and you started without me. Did you say something?
I said, what?
Have you been speaking to them? Have you been slagging me off? I've got to go over and speed up Grandad's wifey tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, I'll break it off.
To be this sort of idea, I mean, it's got here...
careful, that's sharp.
Fucking shit, dipshit. Right. It's got here, proponents of globalism believe in global citizenship. That is, the problems of humanity can be resolved with democratic globalism. Democratic globalism is the idea that all people matter, no matter where they live, and that universal freedom and human rights can be fostered for all mankind. However...
How is that not the default?
Well, there's sort of that idea, but then you get things where, America sort of sees itself as the world police, and like goes to places to sort of, well, you could argue.
Have you seen that film?
What?
Have you seen that film, America, World Police?
Yeah, you showed me it.
Okay.
I think it's sort of they at times sort of use that sort of idea as propaganda to sort of promote going.
They make
to war.
out they
really what they want is the
saved the planet,
resources
didn't they?
or to promote their ideology.
Yeah.
Which sort of to
that was an
basically
interesting thing I
colonise
noticed
those
actually,
areas.
because I know it's often been said that that America tries to claim credit for beating the Germans in World War II, and obviously
That's
they were a
correct.
part of it; they helped.
Yeah.
But I'd not heard until recently. I think last week I saw some guy talking about Russia's role.
Oh yeah, I mean, the USSR and the USA
they're
were
often overlooked.
allies during
Yeah,
that. The USSR, I mean, Berlin wouldn't have fallen without the USSR helping.
yeah.
Interestingly, also, I think because Spain was in a fascist dictatorship for until the
not
70s.
very long ago, really. Yeah,
And given that they sort of started being fascist in the 30s, you might wonder why they didn't join the Axis. Basically, what it boiled down to...
the Italians did, didn't they?
Well, yeah, and Japan was big into fascism, so they joined the Axis, even though the Germans were probably pretty racist against the Japanese, although the Japanese might have been racist towards the Germans as well.
Do you know, it almost seems to me like... Because I've heard far left as being described as fascist, but it's almost like, to me, there seems to be like a... It's not like a political spectrum, it's like a political circle. It's almost like you go so far one way that you can become fascist because you're extreme left as well as extreme right.
There's a sort of idea of making it an issue. I mean, there's this sort of diagram of that political compass, and it has two axes. And while people are a lot more complicated than that, it can be used as a tool to sort of help understand how different politicians and political parties sort of fit in a wider context, and sort of how distantly political ideas are away from each other, I guess. And it's the two axes are economic and I think social. So it's economically left or right, which would be sort of more based towards community or more based towards individualism.
Right, yeah.
But the more important one, in my opinion at least, is
the vertical one.
Yeah, authoritarian versus libertarian.
Yeah. That's interesting, that.
I mean, generally it sort of seems to go mainly from authoritarian right down toward libertarian left, but because
so
there's
would you
that
see
whole
yourself as a
red
liberal
scare.
socialist?
I would see myself as on a moderate day, democratic socialist, and on a day where I'm just like, fuck it.
Where does democratic
anarcho-socialist.
fit in those axes?
It would be sort of centre of the bottom left quadrant. So libertarian left.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
Democratic can be sort of...
But that's not to do with the axis. That's to do with the. I suppose they're linked because authoritarianism is going to be less democratic, isn't it?
Generally speaking, but you can be democratic and be very authoritarian.
Yeah.
Hitler got to power through democratic means, and UKIP,
not democratic beans.
While they're, as far as I know, or at least I guess the Brexit Party now is sort of the post thing. Although I think the Brexit Party's probably fallen apart by now.
Magic beans.
Yeah, they sort of reside surprisingly up in the far right corner.
It's a kind of magic.
If I get out the political compass thing and you just stop fucking being a twit.
Fried chicken.
I'll eat a dick.
Oh, not again.
Here we go.
Ideological music.
What?
Down, 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 down.
From all compass quadrants.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh, they're different
All right,
international.
yeah, national anthem thingies.
There's a lot here because asshole from El Paso.
Do you know any Shostakovich?
I do. Apparently, it's very good metal because it's quite based on like his own life. He was pretty scared of being hunted down. So
He walked very, very weird.
putting sort of the UK political parties from last year into the political compass, UKIP is surprisingly up there, and so are the Conservatives. They're like as right wing as you can go.
That's quite scary.
For
And
context,
not that far away from being as authoritarian as you can go as well.
yeah. For context, Hitler resides about here, so you can't see that. Sort of.
So
There's, I think, 10 squares either side of each axis.
so Hitler was actually a lot less right wing than.
Oh, I mean, Hitler was sort of economically centrist, but extremely authoritarian, which is the issue there. You see, that's the thing that I think that's way more important,
Yeah.
because I disagree with both UKIP and Stalin, obviously, but I would agree with people down here.
That's a good film.
Not because like the left or right thing.
Is it The Death of Stalin? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's quite funny. Also, with China, things get a bit different because they have a concept there, I think, called Dengism.
He's ruined China. China needs to change its name because every time I hear the word China now, I see Trump doing his squeeze box.
Really?
Yeah.
One fucking idiot, one orange idiot's ruined 2,000 years of history. I think they've been called China for about that long because Qin Dynasty.
He's like a bull in a china shop.
Right. Yeah, Dengism, it's sort of market communism, which means it's kind of like capitalist communism, but like really authoritarian and like under a one-party state. It has four main proponents, which is basic spirit of communism, which seems to be mainly an ideological thing. Democratic dictatorship, which seems like a bit of an oxymoron. Stuff to do with the leadership of the Communist Party and sort of trying to stay true to Maoism and Marxism, Leninism. Now, I think it's weird that shut the fuck up. In political context, Marxism's often put next to Leninism because Leninism's very different from Marxism. Because Marx was never a politician.
John Lennon
I guess
was nothing like Groucho Marx.
Lenin, Vladimir.
Ooh.
You just cannot handle anything right now, can you?
I can. I'm just doing my best to put you off. Look, I'm providing the comic relief. This is one of the things that I noticed, actually. You know, me and Mum have been watching through all the Marvel stuff, and there's a lot of people that don't rate Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And there's a lot of people that really like the more gritty stuff, the Netflix series, and we're watching Daredevil at the moment. And I do like that kind of that Avengers style kind of stuff that has the comic relief. Do you know what I mean? I find some of the Netflix stuff quite gritty, quite hard work to get through because there's less humour involved. There's less sort of light relief. While there are serious subjects in the Avengers stuff, and that's what I'm trying to get across here is that I think people will be learning from your wonderful, insightful knowledge, but while also being entertained by a little humour in the meantime.
Right.
I fancy a chocolate hobnob.
back to that
Did
world.
you just say toot?
Oh, fuck off.
You said
Right.
toot.
Back to this idea of a world congress. Basically, the idea was I give each nation or territory seats, I think 10,000 in total, equivalent to their population. So say somewhere like China gets nearly 2,000 seats because it has a very large population.
Just for those who are listening or watching, I'm looking at a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I'm very nerdy. I've done like a whole
With
bunch of elections here.
Whoa, Jesus Christ.
If you're interested in the UK election, these are presidential elections.
This looks like a really complicated Ableton Live project.
Actually, I think...
For all you musos out there.
Yeah, I mean, basically most of these... because our electoral system is designed to sort of be that first past the post thing, which incidentally, apparently, because in 2010 there was...
Do you still play Nation States?
No, I kind of got bored of it because there was...
You started getting involved in the... Weren't you on some sort of council or something with
Yeah, I got involved in like internal politics of that, and then somebody basically said, oh, well, they wrote this constitution for their region.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, this is cool, I'm going to get involved in this. And then they just basically overwrote that. And I was like, but it's a constitution. The kind of point is that you're not supposed to do that. And I got too nerdy for it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We don't have one, do we?
What?
We don't have a constitution.
We have four documents that are sort of like a codified... no, I think the thing is that we don't have a codified constitution. Like, we have some things that sort of amount to it, but...
Yeah.
Which is interesting that I think we're technically in a constitutional monarchy, but we don't really have a constitution.
We're just a clusterfuck, really, aren't we?
Yeah, Britain's confusing.
The UK is clusterfuck without the final C.
What?
Clusterfuck.
Okay.
That's what we are.
Yeah, I found it interesting going through this because basically, like, it seems if you actually go based on percentages, even though there's like more than 100 seats difference between the Labour and the Conservative Party, like in terms of what they actually got in votes, it's not that much different. So with this presidential election, because there's a lot more left-wing parties in the UK...
Do you think he's going to get back in?
Who?
Trumpet.
Oh, yeah. See, it's interesting. The Democrats definitely have the edge with the popular vote, but whether they have the edge with the actual states...
It's a bit sad and a bit... I find myself actually hoping that loads and loads and loads of people die in places like Florida because it would... It's a horrible thing to say, but because it would make it... One would hope it would make it impossible for him to get back in because he would get the blame for it.
No, it won't, though, because he'll spin it as...
That's true.
Oh, it was Democrats' fault, so it was the protesters' fault.
Yeah.
Which, by the way...
That's the one that's been...
It's been proven that the Black Lives Matter protests have not led to a rise in coronavirus cases. Researchers have looked into that, and it's been proven it's not happening. So, if you are saying that, stop fucking saying it.
Yeah. Otherwise, Firebolt's going to come round and face mask you.
Ooh. Kinky. Do you reckon people are going to get, like, weird face mask fetishes through this?
Well, I mean, if it went ahead, I could imagine a lot of people wearing the Jason mask at HHN 30.
What? Like the
Halloween
hockey
Horror
mask?
Nights, yeah.
I'm not sure how much that would actually like.
No, but like a face mask with that design on it, I mean.
Right. You're not supposed to wear costumes through that, though, so it might be a bit...
Yeah. Well, we shall see what happens. Thingy Bob's been cancelled. Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party's been cancelled this year.
Interesting.
Well, if you think about it, there's not much they could actually do.
No.
No shows. It'd be very difficult to be handing sweets out. Fireworks would be off. So basically, it'd just be the rides.
Yeah. So basically, what I've done with this here is I've
made lots of coloured stripes.
Well, I've made basically every political party follow some sort of affiliation, a bit like the EU, where they have these groups.
Have you got formulae set up for the different columns and stuff so that votes transfer into? Like, do you know what I mean? Have you done any spreadsheet formulae in any of these?
Oh,
fields?
loads.
Yeah.
Just an example. Yeah, so like that there. Got loads of stuff here.
So it's not just that you've been learning lots about politics doing this, you've also been learning spreadsheet.
I mean, I kind of knew about that already, but yeah, I have tried to do some.
Yeah, but
things.
Putting it into practice is a. I mean, I know the basic concepts of it, but it would take me a long time to work stuff out until I've practiced it for a while.
But yeah, it begins to get quite complicated. But yeah, basically, I've arranged each political party into some broad categories. And not every political party, like every member, is a member of one of these necessarily.
Those which like Brussels sprouts.
So if I arrange it, I have a system for arranging it because it gets quite complicated. Hang on a sec. Should maybe link to this in some way in show notes. I don't know how, but like it's going to be pretty complicated to explain in some ways.
It's a spreadsheet with lots and lots of complicated stuff on it. Basically, you've designed a whole world political system in Excel, haven't you?
Maybe a bit.
Maybe a bit. This was your teenage hobby.
Yeah.
Is it a hobby though? See, this could be found in 100 years' time and a new global system built on it.
That would be terrifying. See, a lot of it's quite difficult because, especially Ethiopia's one, that was a ball ache because basically they had essentially one party that had any real power and a bunch of parties that were like based on ethnic groups and like their interests because broadly there's a lot of different ethnic groups that have like conflicting interests in Ethiopia. But in December, they decided to change all that and went, oh, we'll have a more united system that's like not based on what is sort of close to like ethno-statism, I guess, which is uncomfortable. Then party, yep. Sorry, I'm trying to arrange it in a way that makes sense.
I don't know what you're doing.
And then,
this is a very visual medium for a podcast.
Yeah, well, sorry. I'll try and explain it.
Sorry, not sorry.
Arranging it so it makes sense.
I'm just looking at lots of different colours.
And then this one.
Pardon me.
And then I think if I just arrange it by territory at the end.
I thought that said African Congenital Congress.
No, continental, which I think might already be a thing, but like I kind of.
There's the African National Congress.
Yeah, that's in South Africa.
All right.
I've basically done it where there's a organisation that sort of represents entire continents or regions. That's part of the Free Trade Federation.
Well, that was a smelly fart.
But if I go to China, because that's the one that I've actually gotten all the members ready for. Yeah. Basically, every single party, not everyone in them is like a member specifically of that particular affiliation. So somewhere like...
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I've got the Asian Prosperity Party here, and while that is mainly the Free Trade Federation... By the way, this is a totally made-up party. I made it up to sort of represent Asia. But like, it's got a bunch of different affiliations within it. But yeah, basically I mean, it's totally not complete, so it's very much weighted by the fact that China's the only one that I've actually completed. Currently, the way it is, progressive partnerships at the top, followed by Democratic Socialist Alliance, narrowly...
See, I can't imagine spending this much time on something like this when at your age, or certainly in my mid-teens when you were doing all this sort of stuff, I was arranging stuff for brass bands.
Yeah, well, we all have our interests. I'm very weird.
Welcome to your artistic world.
I do loads of these projects, but this is one of the biggest ones.
I remember all the flags. You and your flags were.
I can name
else.
any national flag.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the looks of it,
Fred.
nationalists are probably going to end up being second, closely to the progressives. Union for Communism and Order is currently fourth, but that's mainly because of China.
That reminds me, there's a film, Kevin Smith film, just come out on Sky, or a re-thingy of it. Something's Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back or something.
Oh yeah.
You heard about that?
Yeah, I wasn't really sure what that was.
It's supposed to be good. I'm not sure if it's that one that's got a cameo from Stan Lee in it. No, that was Mallrats.
But basically, because there's no big conservative party in China, and the other main one that I've done is India, there's no big conservative party in either of those. Conservatives are actually behind the anarchists, which I find interesting.
Sorry, I just palmed my mic.
Although that'll definitely change when I do the US.
Which would have meant something very different when my boss was called Mike.
What? Okay, right. I feel like I'm getting too bogged down in my nerdy spreadsheet here, but like...
We should bring things to a close sometime soon so we can watch some amusement.
I just found it interesting, this sort of idea of a global government and actually seeing what that might look like in terms of what it's made up of politically.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like with candidate representatives from each country and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the system that I've got currently is there's a presidential election, which is
how many candidates have you got then in this world government?
How many members?
How many seats?
How many seats? 10,000.
Fucking hell, that's a big. I mean, that's a lot of people stood around the edges in the House of Commons.
Well, I've actually, I might have deleted it.
10,000. You could host that somewhere like in like an arena kind of.
Well, yeah, I've basically done it where I've decided it like the Olympics, where it's hosted a different city each time.
See, that's going to take I'm immediately thinking expense scandal.
Probably. I mean, sports is always engulfed in that, isn't it? I've also included my other project that was this big, West Korea, add a little side note into it, but not on the scale that I was doing West Korea because that was too big.
Yeah, it was turning into a lifetime project, that wasn't it?
Well, yeah, but also like researching the different political systems also has a different purpose of like just making me more aware about the world in general. Yeah,
it's the byproduct of it all.
There are some interesting ones.
I'm getting almost as bogged down in all this with building my Amazon Music library at the moment, because I've been doing it for weeks now, and I just keep adding more and more acts to it, because as you go along, you kind of see other ones suggested, and you're like, oh yeah, there's that and there's that, and it's huge. But I'm listening to some Ace stuff that I wouldn't have necessarily listened to otherwise.
Have you checked out that one I recommended?
The Orion Experience.
Yeah.
They are in my library now.
Cool. Did you like them?
I haven't listened to it yet.
Okay.
I'm still building the library, but yeah, I will go and have a listen. So.
Yeah, with this, there are some ones that are a bit difficult to do because
I added Johnny Cash today.
They're sort of broadly especially for places that like have got like one party states or like parties that dominate over everyone else. A lot of the parties sort of follow a similar line in quite a few places, particularly in like somewhere like Iran. It was really difficult to get like varied political parties because most of them...
The National Trust Party?
Yeah.
That sounds like... well, there is a National Trust, isn't there?
Yeah.
I don't know, there's one in England, or there is a National Trust in Scotland.
But, I mean, they seem to have this sort of idea of sort of scholars of Islam being sort of part of the government in Iran, which is... means that a lot of them just follow basically a broad similar ideology. They're either conservative or either the more moderate Islamic faction here, which is the Modern Islamic Assembly, or the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a real world organization that like vaguely supports jihadists, which is quite difficult to sort of integrate that into a world government. I mean, they don't have a lot of members right now.
This is
here, but
yeah, I mean, how the fuck do you organise that? A 10,000 strong government?
Well, it was because I didn't want.
I think what I'm trying to say is, I mean, it's a very interesting project, albeit very in depth. But practically, is it something that could be achieved?
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. I didn't want any of the smaller territories to go without representation.
Right.
But if you
which is why you've had to go for 10,000.
Yeah, to make it fair to somewhere like... I mean, I've basically done it where you automatically get 2 seats, which most organisations like they do something like that.
Are they not...
like in the EU,
does that mean then, for
seats.
instance, does Vatican City have a representative?
Vatican City gets 2 representatives, its president and its prime minister.
Right. And what's the population of Vatican City?
799.
Is it really?
I mean, it fluctuates, obviously. I mean, this was based on...
So what's the country with the lowest population on the planet then?
Vatican City.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's technically the Holy See, but like, yeah.
Which is funny.
I mean, they basically get their own political faction of the Catholic Church because I couldn't really see any way to integrate them into the political system.
They vote by coloured smoke signals.
I mean, I'm not going to do it like they do the actual papal election because that's fucking weird.
Anyway, how shall we draw to a satisfying conclusion? She screamed.
Well, see, we sort of get... I mean, basically, globalism in its current form seems to be... While there are sort of diplomatic organisations and trading blocs, it seems like a unified world is a long way off, and we're often stuck with territorial sort of sniping at each other.
It's almost like the lower ranks, if you like, the general population, the proles are the ones that seem to be leading the way because we're the ones that are interacting on an equal footing with people of the same kind on the opposite side of the planet.
Well, I find it interesting, particularly like with my generation, because a lot of us
people tried to bring us down.
I have found that interesting recently, looking at basically there's this sort of idea of like you get more conservative as you get older.
Bollocks.
But, people try and sort of debunk that by saying,
well,
typically in the past,
from.
Well, exactly. Typically in the past, you got richer as you got older, but that's probably not going to be true for my generation.
I mean, not that I'm going to be rich, but when I'm better off, when I'm on a teacher's salary in a few years' time, does that mean I'm going to be more conservative?
You have more to lose in the system, supposedly.
Yeah, but I mean, I know teachers that have been in the profession for a long time.
I think teachers are probably an exception.
Well, you've got to have a certain level of intelligence.
Yeah.
But also, I suppose you're not in that profession. You're not although you're earning a reasonable amount,
See, with that,
arguably, you're not really valued that much by the government.
with that Brexit podcast I was talking about, they sort of talked about that there seems to be quite a big economic divide in England, sort of class divide there. And I found that interesting because I was like, oh, like around, particularly like that idea of, oh, we've had enough of experts. And I think that's because, you have to pay for tuition in England, and that often means that you kind of have to be well off or like good enough to get a scholarship to go to higher education, whereas someone like Boris Johnson can basically just coast on by because he's rich.
I think, I mean, this does kind of bring it round to I suppose some kind of conclusion for me. I started off saying about how before Brexit I was thinking more globalist, but then in terms of the one nation thing, but then wanting to separate from England because of their politics. I suppose what I'm feeling now is that yes, I do want Scotland to become independent, but the positive reason behind that is so that it can take an appropriate position for its size and demographic on the world stage, which I don't think the UK do. I think the UK try to be a lot bigger than they are.
They still have a fair amount of influence, like through the Commonwealth, but
it's
like,
all
as much as we think we do. I don't think
it's all.
Or at least
it's all imperial hangover, though.
Yeah. Well, it's like. I mean, we are, I think, still the 6th biggest economy in the world, and
in a capitalist society, I suppose that pulls some weight. But I know economy has far-reaching effects on the citizens of a nation, but it's still essentially fucking around with numbers.
Yeah, well,
and affecting lives because of it. It's like.
Indeed.
Let's start thinking about the people instead of the numbers.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's sort of, I think quite a lot of people point to very capitalistic nations. Oh, look how successful they are. They've got this really big economy, but it's like that's on capitalism's own metric, though.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, because you can have an amazing economy in a country, but one person's got all the money.
Yeah, well, like the US has really high inequality.
Well, I suppose that's a bit of an oversimplification because the economy is not going to thrive if one person's got all the money. But
no, but like a fairly small amount of people can have a fair portion of it,
and do.
Yeah, well, I think it's like
spread it.
The wealthiest, I think, 43 people in America own half the wealth, which is crazy.
Anyway, yeah.
2 billionaires, pay your fucking taxes, you shits. I don't care how much you give to charity, pay the fucking taxes.
That's the thing, though. I suppose if they're committing a crime, fair enough, but the system is weighted in their favour. They can get away with legally not paying.
Well, they can get away with it, but they shouldn't.
But then they own the
morally,
power, don't they? They own the people.
Well, that's the point.
They have the power, and
see, that's the point of people saying about like
you can buy power.
Basically, trusting the courts to deal with issues of police brutality in particular, but also like issues to do with sexual assault. Like trusting the system that is very obviously flawed.
I think the courts
fix that.
I think the courts have some sway, but not nearly enough.
But like the courts themselves are corrupt.
Yeah. It's like it is the tortoise and the hare, isn't it? You can't. None of these massive problems that we've got can be fixed overnight, and the problem is some of the massive problems we've got need to be fixed quickly.
Well, particularly like climate change, like that should have been fixed 20 years ago, but we're still here today.
50 years ago, we should have been starting on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we knew.
Sure, I heard the other day. This scared the fuck out of me. It probably means a lot less to you, right. But and it's an obvious fact, it's just something we don't like to think about, is that we are now an equal, temporarily, we are an equal distance from 1990 as from 2050.
Yeah, I mean, I think we still have that sort of thing where a lot of people seem to forget how far away the 90s were.
I still feel like we're in the 20th century, a lot of us. I mean, you weren't born in the 20th century, so you don't, but I mean, 1990 to me, it might seem like it's recently, but then I think to myself, well, hang on a minute. That was when I went to college.
That was the thing that I was going to say about how I wonder if my generation will be a lot more globalistic because, I talk to people all around the world almost every day.
Yeah, and but talking's not the same thing. You're still doing it in your bedroom.
Well, yeah, but I'm interacting with people across the globe, and it's that idea of just saying, well, it doesn't matter. It matters your background.
Do you know what I think matters about that?
Yeah,
that I mean, I travelled when I was younger, admittedly only around sort of Europe and the Mediterranean, but it's a different thing to visit someone else's culture, for a week or two every now and then, than to be exposed to communication with people all around the world on a daily basis, because it's like that mixing of ideologies, isn't it? And that kind of we can go, like when I went on holiday when I was a kid, I was visiting a foreign culture.
Right.
For a week or two, I was out of my home culture in somebody else's, and then I went back home to my own. Whereas now they're all mixing all the time. It's not just people visiting other cultures; they're kind of seeping into each other through the internet.
But
so the internet's kind of making globalism happen inevitably. There's no, I mean, the only way that can be stopped is by every country putting up its own private internet, really.
Yeah, which I think China has tried to do. And interestingly enough, I think the UK government almost tried to do, but it was a big task and very authoritarian to basically...
Yeah, do you
remember back in last year?
Back in last year, all those eons ago.
Centuries ago. Seriously, I don't know how it's still June while we're recording this.
Well, it feels like it's going to be July by the time we finish, but...
Well, maybe. But,
it will be by the time they're listening to this.
Well, definitely. Yeah, they were going to do the porn block thing. And basically the only way to do that effectively was to create your own private internet.
Yeah. There's nothing, I mean, with VPNs and Tor, there's only so much you can do without actually physically cutting the outside lines.
Well, yeah.
You can't even do that without
But the thing that they were trying to do, any actual argument against kids seeing that would be to just actually educate them on it.
You could stab them all in the eyes. That would stop them seeing it.
I feel like the Tories were on the way to doing that, and then someone was like, "Yeah, maybe that won't go down well."
Let's finish, because I've finished my second beer, and if I go on to a third, it should be to some kind of humorous programme. And I don't mean a political propaganda invasion of my mind.
What?
A humorous programme.
Oh. Okay.
But I don't know why it doesn't make any sense.
The other thing that I was going to say about the class divide in England particularly is how that might be different in Scotland, and how it doesn't make sense to me how a lot of working class people in England voted for Brexit, but the class divide there and sort of that idea of rejecting experts, the class divide around education in particular is very different.
There is
because there's free tuition here. I wouldn't be able to go to university probably if there wasn't free tuition here.
There is a surprisingly big cultural attitude difference between Scotland and England.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's because I've become more politically aware over the last 20 years since I've been living here, or because I've been exposed to it because I do live here. But from what I remember, when I lived in England, we weren't really aware of how politically different and culturally different Scotland's outlook is. And I have to be frank about it and say I think it's far superior.
I mean, it's sort of...
It's got its faults, but...
That thing of just sort of being more... I think a big thing is being sort of more open to outsiders, I guess.
I think a part of it is based on not being an arrogant bunch of fucks that think that you're the best country on the planet.
There are issues then, with like we're still part of the UK, and there are some hang-ups from that, but
for about half the country, that's reluctantly.
Yeah, because like we sort of have that thing where basically if England does anything, we kind of have that instinct to just go, nope.
Do you know, I just saw...
to do anything else.
I just realised you put Democratic Republic of Congo down there, but you've abbreviated it, and I thought it said Dr. Congo. I was like, who's Dr. Congo? And on that note...
we should probably be finishing up because this is getting pretty long, and
that's what she said.
I'm tired, and it's nearly midnight, and we want to watch something.
Yeah,
and
I've
think
got to
we're
go
getting
and
a bit
install
boring.
more games. You're not editing tonight, are you?
Nah,
I'm going to go and take this equipment upstairs and continue with my downloading all sorts of games for me to investigate.
Are we watching something then?
Yeah. I just need to take the equipment upstairs first.
Right. I'm not sure how much of that made sense. I mean, I vaguely tried to steer back onto some sort of idea of globalism occasionally. But yeah, he keeps doing shit like that, so it's kind of difficult to keep your train of thought, especially since I've got a headache before we even started, and now I've started drinking. So.
That's a really fucking good album, actually.
I don't feel like we're having a conversation most of the time. I
Train
feel
of
like
thought.
We're just talking like...
No, Train of Thought, Dream Theatre. I'm still engaging. I'm just not being quite as...
I mean, it's
compliant.
Fine. It's just I don't feel like I'm actually talking to you. I feel like I'm just talking into the void and something's coming back. It's like Chinese whispers.
China.
I hate you.
And on that
note,
please stop moaning and say goodbye to the people.
Bye. We should do the outro, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, I've been Firebolt.
I've been the Orbiter,
and that's been Breaking Marks, episode 62.
Globalism.
Oh. What the fuck?
I'm trying to say globalism in tandem, in tutti, in what do you call it? In sync? No, what is it called? In unison. That's it. Say it.
No, because I want it to look like your...
Have we gone into the afterbirth accidentally? I think we must have
we've
done.
done the outro. Haven't we?
Well, yeah, but I said globalism. I don't think you'd let it lie at that.
Globe. Fuck off. I don't know.
Okay, so anything insanely interesting to say before I stop the madness?
Hit you.
This podcast is part of the After Dark Podcast Network.